The Last of Us, Season 1, Episode 4, title Please Hold By My Hand. Of course, that is the opening song that gets played in this episode. That is also a video game reference, because that's the song that gets played while Joel and Ellie are on their road trip heading towards Jacksonville trying to find Tommy, who was a former Firefly, and maybe he knows where to take Ellie, where the Fireflies and there's a lab is going to take place. And what this episode does is kind of what happened with last week, where it's just building on characters, building on elements for the game that was very shallow, aka like the hunters. I understand what their motivations, understanding why they're doing what they're doing, just in that sense of things, and adding things that maybe works better, knowing that, hey, there is a part 2. Hey, there is going to be a season 2. And that will probably help a little bit more where people believing the certain things that are going to happen in part 2. Or in season 2, knowing the events of the second game. And, which I will talk about a little bit later. But what this episode is, like, someone may say this is a filler episode again, because it doesn't do anything. It all happens. What happens is they enter Kansas City. They get invaded by the hunters, and then the hunters are like, we need to kill these guys, whoever these guys are. Also, we need to also find Henry and Sam, whoever these guys are. I know who they are, but in the context of the show, who are they? And then Joel and Ellie meet them. Now, I do like the final scene. You call it the second final scene, where they're about to go to sleep on like a top of a apartment building, I believe. That I really enjoyed. That's a good, like, you can tell their bond, the bond between Joel and Ellie is there. The bond between these two characters are slowly creeping around. Like last week's episode, Joel went and basically said,
here's how this thing's gonna play out. You don't bring up Tess. Ever.
But guess what happened? Joel brings up Tess like twice in this episode. And Ellie does once. And he doesn't go, hey, what did I say? Do not bring Tess into it. And so it kind of shows they're a little bit more open book. They're a little bit more heartwarm to each other. Like they're, being inside a car for X amount of hours and X amount of days, it does help a little bit. It probably does, right? It helps a lot. Because you're stuck with this person for X amount of hours. You better joke around and hope and try and find a way to get along. And it, seems to be helping. By the way, them in the car, I thought we would have the scene last week. But we had it this week, and I do prefer the video game version. I do think Troy Baker and Ashley Johnson's performances are better in that scene than in the show, just because it felt like the lines was just getting just quick fast. It's just, and that is.
Oh, I'm sure your friend will be missing this tonight.
Mm-hmm.
Light on the reading, but it's got some interesting photos.
Now, Ellie, that ain't for kids.
Whoa! How the hell would he even walk around with that thing?
Get rid of that.
Well, hold your horses. I want to see what all the fuss is about. Oh, why are these all stuck together? I'm just fucking with you. Bye-bye, dude.
What this episode does is expand on the hunters, because the hunters are just there so you have obstacles on your way. The reason why is you're getting bolts. The reason why it's to change things up so you ain't a clicker all the time, right? Or bloaters, was clearly they were hinting a lot in this episode. I was like, that's where those bloaters come from. Seriously, think about it. We don't know where the bloaters come from. It's just busting through a door and it's like, hi, I'm a bloater. So we all know that bloaters come underground, which of course we will officially meet them next week, which sounds like all the events that happen that's meant to, like, in the game, there's like 3 sections of where we deal with Henry and Sam, and it happens like a whole overnight thing, and it feels like they're gonna make it one night, just one night, and I feel like, you know what, that makes more sense, where you got the hunters looking for them, and then there's the affected coming towards them. I don't know. I won't tell you what happens for people who don't know the games, but you know, it's. All I would say, thank goodness we don't have 4 episodes in a row where people feel quiet time is around the corner. We have an episode break of like quiet time. But what this episode does is well bearing, because every time Joel and Ellie enter to a new town or a new place, it's rebuilding, understanding what is this environment. Why is it different? Why is it like this? And it's expanding on the hunters. It's about, hey, these guys were won by Fedra. They were sick how Fedra was dealing with them and how they were treating. So they were, you know, had a revolution and took control of Kansas City. And now it's a very glue factory. They are very, hey, if you were a Fedra agent, you're going to get murdered. But outside of that, we have rules and how things are done and how things should be. Now, there's a scene in this episode that reminds me of part 2. And that is that Ellie does her first kill. And the guy is like, no, please, please, please let me live. Please let me live. Please, please, please. I really beg you. Please let me live. Please, 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 please. And I'm like, that reminds me of part 2. Because that's a mechanic that it makes you really feel shitty. Because, you know, play Uncharted, you know, let's stick to the Naughty Dog, you know, theme. When you play Uncharted, you know, you're shooting every Tom, Dick, and Harry. And, you know, there's no consequence, you know. But in The Last of Us, it reminds you that, hey, that person you just killed, that's someone's loved one. That's someone's that's someone's partner. That's someone's friend. That's someone's family member. That's someone's child. That's someone's parent. And you know that there were certain people that care for them, and you took their life away, and having that moment that has a person doing the whole no, please, please, and it was a hard moment to watch. But the part where this guy's just saying no, please, please, do not kill me, please, 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 I was like, probably when they were writing this and filming this, they didn't know season 2 was when they were going to do season 2. But this works better. This reminds you the world that these guys are living in, where there isn't a black and white, there isn't a grey. Good and evil doesn't exist anymore. You know, everyone is there to, basically, you're the bad guy in someone else's story. And what that scene does is helps, I think, the average goer of when part 2 events happen, it will work. When part 2 events happen, it will make people feel bad and feel emotionally wrecked, but it will feel emotional sense and feels that it doesn't come out of nowhere. Because I think with part 1, with example of someone like Joel, in part 1, let's be honest, Joel was kind of treated as a guy who had to do bad things, but he was a good guy in heart. And then part 2, it kind of got reminded to you that, oh no, this guy's a piece of shit. And when that happened, there was a small chunk of fans who were like, fuck you, you killed Joel, fuck you. So, yeah, spoiler alert, in season 2, in part 2, Joel dies. I'm not going to tell you how. And I ain't going to tell you when or who. And then by when season 2 comes across, you're going to forget about it. Unless you are going to, ask your one gamer friend, or you're going to play part 2 because you want to know what happens next. Unless you want that to happen, go ahead. But This show is just flawed. I'm shocked. I'm amazed. I'm at awe. I'm just... This is... I mean, it's safe to say this is the best video game adaptation ever. I mean, that's not saying much. I mean, when Sonic the Hedgehog is like the best video game movie at the time, it still is probably at the time. We'll see how what's the next one? Mario is. Mario looks so good. And Five Nights at Freddy's and Transoriso and let's see how this goes. And it seems like television seems to be the way some of these big video game franchises are going. Sony's making a God of War show for Amazon. Amazon's also making a Tomb Raider series with she's gonna be in the new Fleabag, and she's gonna be in the new Indiana Jones film. I'm stating her name, but she's gonna write the show, not starring in it, and they're gonna plan to make a shared universe with Tomb Raider, which is gonna be interesting how they're gonna do it. And Netflix is doing Assassin's Creed and a couple others. So it sounds like maybe video game seems to be more suitable for TV. And guess what? I don't care, guys. I don't mind the Halo show. Boom, mic drop, boom. And everyone, see you next week where we are. Seems like we're going to get a big action-packed spectacle episode, and it feels like it's going to be very earned.